And I'd love to have you on. I'd like to have a panel one day to talk about that. 'Cause I think it's very,
Okay.
very, because I think only 17% of us live in a two-parent household now.
Wow.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah. I don't think a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not a good thing. Gotta, I was talking to Dad, about that. I said, push the best day dealt with those issues too in a forward way. And I said, moving forward, part of your legacy is that because we
Mm-hmm.
really need that. Much need that. So let me sing hello to everybody here, because it's just, to get all this money, to gain the world and to lose our souls, which is what essentially I think we've done. We've gotten a lot of money. We've lost a lot of money too, because the wealth that we had, okay, wealth that we saw in the 70s. I guess you could just say, Vicky, on Reverend's watch, that's gone
Mm-hmm.
now. There was a political article that talks about the disappearance of black wealth, and Chicago was the capital of that.
Mm.
And my mother was like, "What was the time period?" I said, "The 70s, 80s, and 90s." She said, "Boom, that's Reverend." I said, "Absolutely."
Right.
And that is, that's us marching afterwards and all of that.
That was
So,
that was our whole focus,
yep.
our complete focus.
And having the family together, you know.
Right.
And we've got to get back to that. Thank you so much, Matt. Have a great show. God bless us, and let us bless God and bless everybody here. Hey, hey, hey! Good to see you. Hey, Joyce, you're so sweet. Okay, you need to turn that up, Matt. I can barely hear. Thank you. Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. Hi, everybody. Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, December 8th. Ooh, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear your voices today. So much is going on all the time. I want to hear your thoughts about the top news stories and just how you're getting through the season. Call me at 773-763. WCPT 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And please go to my YouTube channel. Watch us over there, The Santita Jackson Show, and like and subscribe. And then, of course, you can stick with us at Facebook on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And you can connect with me on Instagram on Santita Jackson IG or on Twitter at Santita J. I want to hear your voices today. We're going to be talking about Emmett Till. Wow. 1955, 66 years, and yet it's so fresh. It's so fresh. Uh, his murder, his lynching, if you will, changed America as we knew it. It inspired the modern civil rights movement. It inspired Rosa Parks. She said, "When I thought of Emmett Till," remember, she refused to move to the back of the bus just a few months after that. She said, "When I thought of Emmett, I could not move, and I refused to move." Wow. And of course, we thank God for his mother, Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley, who cut a deal with the people from Mississippi. And they said, "We will let you take your son's body back if you do not let anyone see him." And she said, "Yes, sir. Thank you very much." Brought him back to Chicago on the train, and as soon as the train pulled into the station, she had them open up the casket. And then she had an open casket viewing. It changed the world. It changed the world. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today. I'm going to be getting the latest on the Jussie Smollett case. The jury should be going into deliberations today. What will they see? And what happened yesterday? He had a very strong day the day before yesterday. Some reports say that he didn't have as strong a day, but I have a feeling Shelley Stanley's going to tell us something different. And I want to know if what you've been hearing here and if what you've been hearing, what your thoughts are about the case. Just let me know. Let me know on the Santita Jackson Show, 773-763-9278. There's so much going on. And of course, we'll be talking with Dr. Deborah Holden about Omicron. She's had a very interesting experience since she's been recovering from COVID, and you'll hear her. She's doing great, everybody. And of course, we've got Reverend Vicki Johnson. Reverend Vicki Johnson is going to be giving us good news. So let's get to some of these headlines so that we can get to the rest of the show. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 33 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 21 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed up 492 points yesterday. The Nasdaq closed up 461 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 95 points. In the NBA, we're going to have some great basketball tonight. The Bulls will be facing off against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Jazz will be facing off against the Timberwolves, everybody. In the NHL, what an active night last night. Well, it was kind of plus and minus. The Wild 4-1 over the Oilers. Good for them. But the Chicago team fell to the Rangers. That's right. Chicago. Oh, well, the Rangers 6, Chicago 2. You can't win them all, but you just try to win as many as you can so you can try and get that Stanley Cup. I love it. I love it. I love it. Two key pieces of legislation passed the House late yesterday. Democrats, joined by one lone GOP member, Adam Kinzinger, voted to pass a new debt ceiling plan to raise the country's borrowing limit amid a big fight over it. And they are avoiding a disastrous default later this month. It will now be up to the Senate to see what's going to happen next. Germany has a new chancellor, Olaf Scholz. Can you believe Angela Merkel was in for 16 years, second to only Helmut Kohl as their longest-serving chancellor? He's been voted in as Germany's new chancellor, ending her 16 years at the helm. She's only one day short of Helmut Kohl's really record-breaking occupancy of that seat. It was an expected victory for the 63-year-old leader of the Social Democratic Party, and he is a fan of Joe Biden. So we will see how that relationship continues to proceed. Former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows will no longer cooperate with the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. A letter from his attorney says that Mr. Meadows was ready to voluntarily appear for a deposition, but, quote, actions by the Select Committee have made such an appearance untenable, close quote. Do you think he was pressured, everybody? We'll find out. Richest 1% took 1%, took 38%. Excuse me, let me say that again. The richest 1% took 38% of the new global wealth since 1995. Guess how much the bottom half got? Wait for it, 2%. In the nearly 3 decades since 1995, the members of the global elite, the global 1%, have captured 38%, almost 40% of all new wealth, while the poorest half of humanity have benefited from just 2%. What do you think about that, everybody? Do you think that's fair? Call me, text me, 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And as we've been fighting over the budget, guess what? The House approved $778 billion for the military budget. There was no CBO score needed, no concern about the deficit, no mention of inflation. Thank you, Congressman Jamal Bowman out of New York, who said that. Okay, we've been fighting over Build Back Better, and they just continue to get money that they don't even ask for at the Pentagon. Some really interesting news. I thought it was a little sad. Reverend Vicki Johnson, I came across this and I said, wow, we've got to really look at this, look at where we are just as a people. The number of U.S. homes with a married couple and kids fell to a record low, everybody, according to new government data. As the pandemic further delayed weddings and more adults do not plan to have kids at all. The share of 130 million households with parents and kids, 17.8%. But we are seeing just something really, really, really stunning. Not only are Americans delaying marriage, the share of America's households headed by married parents with children fell to 17.8%. What do you think about that? It just continues to decline. Most of our children are not growing up with their mother and father in the household. What do you think about that? I think it's something that we've got to look at because it speaks to who we are and who our children will be. Pastor Vicki Johnson, are you stunned by those numbers? 17.8%? Not even
Yes, I
20%?
am.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Hmm. It really, when I saw it last night, I said, whoa. That we're going to have another discussion about that. I mean, I think a lengthier discussion about, because it speaks to who we are. And it says so much. It says so much. But you know what? We're looking for some good news, and I think that it's out there somewhere. Pastor Vicki Johnson of the St. Thomas Lutheran Church on 80th and Jeffrey here in Chicago. From 11:45 to 12:15 every Sunday, you can get 30 minutes, a half hour of power. Hope you meet them over there. It's safe and it's a blessing. Pastor Johnson, what's the good news?
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all of the morning stars and friends. There is good news. Mothers do it. Fathers do it. Children do it. Medical professionals do it. Officers and essential workers do it. Ministers and musicians do it. Even radio personalities do it. What is it that they all do? Stress. I'm sure you're all familiar with stress, a state of mental or emotional strain caused by adverse circumstances. High levels of stress normally manifest in the body in various ways, such as acne, headaches, chronic pain, sickness, insomnia, lack of energy, changes in appetite, depression, and a lowered immune system, just to name a few. You will hear people advising you not to stress, which I think is unrealistic because you are bound to be worried or concerned about something in life. So taking this into consideration, I'm going to just ask you to stress less. Yes, stress less. You really don't have to be stressed about everything all of the time. Here are some tools you can use to help you stress less. First of all, you can meditate. Quiet your mind with a guided meditation. You can exercise, work out, or do yoga. Use positive self-talk. Instead of bringing yourself down, talk yourself up. Use aromatherapy. Use aromatherapy.
Gotcha.
Put scents around you that are calming or bring pleasant memories. Get a hug from someone, or even give yourself a hug. Make time for leisure. Read a book. Watch a movie. Get a mani-pedi. Work a puzzle or take a nap. You deserve it. And last but not least, pray. Matthew 18:1 says, we should always pray and not faint. During this holiday season, use your tools to stress less. If you can do this, and I'm sure you will, then to me, that's good news.
I love it. I love it. And we need that now more than ever because there's so much going
Yes.
on. This is such a stressful time of year for so many people. I mean, for everybody. Do I buy the gifts? Do I have enough money to buy any gifts? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
pum. Is my drum going to be enough? I don't know. Just whatever we have to
Yes.
give. But there's a lot that I think that we are stressing about all the time. But it just seems that it's increased at this time of year. And thank
Yes.
you for that because we do need to dial it back. What did you say? No,
Yes.
stress is part of life. You got to manage it.
Right, right.
Pastor Vicki
Take
Johnson.
take charge, take control.
Absolutely. Everyone, go to 80th and Jeffrey. 80th and Jeffrey. It's right on the corner of the St. Thomas Lutheran Church. Get that half hour of power on Sunday, 11:45 a.m. to 12:15. They do it late enough and early enough for you to have a nice Saturday night and quickly enough for you to enjoy the rest of your day. I love it. It's rich.
Amen.
Pastor Johnson, I love you so much. Can't wait to speak with you
Love you,
next week.
Santita.
Absolutely. Love,
Okay.
Lord willing. Dr. Deborah Holden, how you doing?
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Girl, you sound great. You sound absolutely great. And you know what? The prayers of the righteous availeth much because we have been praying for you. But let me ask you this. Do you know which variant you have? Do you have any suspicions? And is it important which variant we have? Is it important that we know, excuse me, whether we have Delta or Omicron?
Well, here's what I think is important is that we be doing it's called genomic surveillance. We should be monitoring which strains of COVID are in the community. And we need to continue to do the laboratory tests to understand how well both the vaccines as well as the antibodies that people produce from infection and recovery work in neutralizing these various strains. I think that's information that we need to ongoingly gather. I have not had sequencing done on my COVID, but 12 of the people that attended the wedding that I attended were from California. I'm pretty sure they're the ones who brought it to the party. And 5 of their results have come back, and all 5 of them have Omicron. So it is predictable that I also have Omicron.
Well, then let me ask you this. Everybody at the party was, at the wedding, people were vaccinated
They were vaccinated,
and
and many
boosted.
of them were vaccinated and boosted.
So
Mhm.
what should we take away from that? I mean, because you all are also not hospitalized, you're also doing well. What should be our
Yeah.
takeaways
So,
from
so
that,
the first,
or
the
is it
first,
too early
the
to
first
tell?
step. Yeah. It's early, but the very first study that's come out of South Africa, they've released the information from that study. Very small, less than 50 cases that they looked at. But it looks like it's called the neutralizing effect of antibodies. So how well antibodies do at stopping the virus from replicating. Now, what's interesting is it looks like Omicron uses the same, entry point to get into your cells, ACE2 receptors. That's the same as Delta. That's the same as all the strains of this virus that we've seen. So that's pretty good because then that means that the basic mechanism that the vaccine is targeting, that spike protein. Remember, I asked people to think of the spike protein as the key, right? It's the key to unlock your cell. So it uses the same basic key, the spike protein. It comes in the same door in your body, the ACE2 receptor. And so the vaccine should still work. Now, what it does, however, is it will change the spike protein a bit. So your body will still recognize it, but it's just a little bit trickier. This is why they're recommending boosters to give your body even more of an immune response. And you've heard from a lot of people who've gotten boosters, they got that booster and that third dose kind of knocked some people down just for about a day. But that's what it's doing. It's basically amping your immune system up in case you become infected. So what it looks like is 2 doses have some effectiveness, but substantially less effectiveness at preventing you from both contracting it as well as from getting sick. But it does seem to do well at preventing you from getting severe symptoms. And the early evidence looks like Omicron might produce milder symptoms than does Delta and some of the other strains. And here's what's really interesting. the symptoms appear to be also a little bit different. They appear to be a little bit different. So they weren't seeing a lot of reports of loss of taste and smell. People weren't getting fevers. My symptoms were sore throat and fatigue. Those were the two big symptoms that hit me. I got exhausted. I was exhausted just standing in line at the testing facility for an hour waiting to get my test. I got tired and had to lean up against the wall, which is nothing. I have a standing desk at home, so I'll be on, video calls or Zoom calls, and I'll just get tired of sitting and I'll raise my desk up and I'll stand for 3-4 hours, during a workday. Easy, no problem. So standing up for an hour at the testing facility, I needed a nap afterwards. Those symptoms subsided after about 3 or 4 days. But that's what the early evidence is showing us. But we just still have to monitor it because you know what? All it would take is 1 or 2 tweaks in this variant, and it could become more virulent. The symptoms could change. So we just got to continue with the surveillance to keep an eye on it and see exactly how effective antibodies that we currently have, whether from natural infection and recovery or from being vaccinated, and as well from being vaccinated and boosted, and depending on what vaccine you got and what boosters you got to really understand this. So more to come, but so far the data are pointing to this seems to be less severe but more contagious.
Less severe, but more contagious. Should we be worried?
So more people will get it, but it will not produce as severe of symptoms. That actually potentially, Santita, could be a good thing because it could be more in line with like a common cold as far as the experience for the person who gets it, which would be a lot better. See, what raised the alarm, and I know people said, but the death rate is so low and blah, blah. But the whole point is if we can prevent death, I don't think we're a nation that says, for disease only has a 1 or 2% or 3% death rate, then we're not going to, it's not a big deal. Well, that would be one thing if it was something that was unavoidable. But when we're talking about something that can be prevented through these basic public health precautions, and definitely through something as simple as a vaccination, well, why would we tolerate that, right? The whole goal is to prevent people from getting sick and to prevent people from dying from those illnesses. And so that's the sort of the alarm with this thing is that it's avoidable. And not only is it just about preventing the death, remember we got a lot of people who have developed these lingering symptoms from their COVID infection, and they're having to live with that. You've seen the headlines. COVID patients are, moving up the ladder on the lung transplant list. So you've got people that got other health conditions, genetic conditions, et cetera, who've been on the lung transplant list, but these COVID patients have had COVID wreak, havoc on their respiratory system, and they've been elevated to the top of the lung transplant list, moving right past people who were, near the top because of other conditions, and now the COVID people are, saturating that list. So this is not one of those things where we just want to kind of sit by and let it happen. If we can prevent it, that's the real goal, is to prevent people from getting sick in the first place.
Dr. Deborah Furholden, everybody, talking about COVID, talking about the Omicron variant and the Swiss cheese model. I literally have 1 minute. What is our takeaway? What should we know? In addition to getting a vaccine, there's some people who are not vaccinated, but you're saying, look, give us all of the layers of protection that can help us to be as healthy as you.
Yeah, sure. So the good news is all those things we've been talking about, it doesn't matter which strain of this we're talking about, they all work. Masks will protect you from breathing in the virus. It will also help prevent you from breathing the virus out onto others. So I do encourage people continue to mask when you are indoors, when you're in more densely populated spaces, or you're just simply around people that you don't know. And if the people who don't know their COVID status. Since you talked about it a bit, having service people come to your house, it is very fair to require those people to put a mask on. As Dr. Knighton says, wash your hands, people. Good hand hygiene. If we did nothing more but walk out of this pandemic with everybody having better hand hygiene and more mindfulness about how they interact in the world, that could also be very transformative of preventing the spread of lots of other illnesses. The last thing I want to say, and you love to talk about therapeutics, a lot of these therapeutics that exist, it looks like many of the benefits of them will still work with some of these other strains that are emerging now. But I just really want to encourage people, these therapeutics, as we get into these epidemic proportions and see these surges, we will get into a condition where we start rationing those things. So really, focus on that high nutrient-dense diet, moving your arms and legs every day for 30 minutes, and then just taking on something every day, some indicator for your own well-being, some practice of self-care every day. And that's to support people's overall mental health. Because what people don't realize is there's a mind-body connection.
Absolutely.
And when the mind is well, the body has a better chance to be well, too.
Dr. Deborah Verholden, everybody, holding it down. You're seeing how she's recovering from COVID. Let's follow her example, people. Let's talk about Jussie Smollett on the other side of the break on the Santita Jackson Show. Thank you, Matt. Dr. Deb, do you want to stay on so you can hear the latest and the greatest from the courtroom yesterday?
Reduce your carbon footprint with the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program.
If you're looking to refinance your existing
Hey,
home,
Matt?
you need to call Team Hochberg. Your trusted
Okay, I can't hear
Billy,
Dr.
married,
Deb.
2 kids, living in an $800,000 home.
Dr.
Call
Deb?
to do a cash-out refinance to pay off credit card debt.
Okay, I think you need to turn the radio down. I can't
Team
hear
Hochberg
her
helped Billy
still.
eliminate over 50 G's of credit
Dr.
card
Deb?
debt and reduce.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, you want to stay on so you can hear the latest and the greatest from Shelley?
I'm staying on. I can't wait. I feel like this is like a new mini-series I'm watching.
Oh man, what am I gonna do with you, girl? You're like, oh no, don't let me, don't drop me, don't drop me.
Don't drop me. Don't drop me. And you talking about you need lines. I'm like, you said that once before, and I didn't want to hang up. I said, well, if they need it, they'll drop me. They know what to do. Yeah, and Miss Campbell, right?
Shelley Stanley. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, not Erica Campbell. Shelley Stanley.
Yes. You can speak to her.
Yeah,
She's on right now. Shelley?
They're fangirling her. They're fangirling.
Okay, is Shelley Stanley there?
I am. Yeah, I just got in.
Oh no. I wanted you to hear from Dr. Deborah Verholden. You have a whole new group of fans. I want you to know. Shelley.
Hi, Shelly. I'm fangirling. I've been hanging on, listening every day. I feel like I get the real scoop on what's happening from you. So, and me and my daughters looking at that. What is this woman's name?
I appreciate that. I mean, from the beginning, I just was so offended that people were so blatantly lying, to the people, especially in Chicago. Like, I have family ties here too, and it's just. So I'm so grateful to be able to share this information with people here, so that everybody knows exactly what's going on. And yeah, I also like you said, people are not getting the full information. Like, even I've been seeing some of the media coverage of the cross-examination, and people are acting like it was that it was some sort of great cross-examination by Webb. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what they were watching, but it was absolutely terrible. Like, he ended both. He was kind of up there stuttering. He didn't really know what to say. His only evidence is that Jussie was with the brothers driving around in a car like a couple days before. And he says, it's all hearsay. Everything he has is hearsay and based on the brothers' words. So
the brothers' words
that they were
the brothers' right. Story that changed the 47th hour, 1 hour before they could have been charged. Right. Come on.
Exactly.
I'm just sorry.
And so the whole thing is you were with the brothers at this time, and they say you were planning the attack, or the brothers said that that you told them to do this and you told them to do that, but they don't have anything at the scene linking the brothers there except their word that they were supposedly there, even though, as we talked about the other day, there was clearly a white man there, according to the guard's testimony.
Well, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, the cross-examination was absolutely terrible.
30 seconds.
Well, we're coming up in 20 seconds, so stay right there because we're going to come right to you. And Dr. Deb, you can say amen and hallelujah if you wish.
Yes, amen and hallelujah.
But you know what? I think for you,
Drink the Kool-Aid too.
no, but I think it would be interesting for you to weigh in and say that.
10 seconds.
Stand by. Really. Hold on.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We have been following the Jussie Smollett trial. It's moved very, very quickly. It seems that it could go to the jury today. What happened yesterday? Certainly, it's since Jussie Smollett took to the stand, a lot of minds were changed since people have been listening to Shelley Stanley on this show, brilliant investigative journalist. A lot of minds have changed. And so we want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what happened in the courtroom yesterday, because after he had this tremendous day on Monday, the reports that we got about yesterday's testimony was that he was nailed to the wall. I think that's what they said in the Daily Beast. We do know that the defense has rested and that we will get a verdict at some point. So deliberations and then a verdict. So, Shelley Stanley, you know what? I have Dr. Deborah Holden who's holding because she wants to hear you. Dr. Deb, I thought that your thoughts really mirrored a lot of what we've been hearing. When you've been listening to this information coming from Ms. Stanley, what have you been thinking?
Shocked and amazed. Shocked and amazed. And honestly, a little embarrassed because I know the kind of treatment that Black and brown people get in the criminal justice system. I know that, unfortunately, a lot of law enforcement officers lie. They get it in their mind that you are guilty, and then they rig things and they concoct things and they intimidate people to make that case. And I think at some point, they get overzealous and they think they're doing a public good, but they're not. No public good is served by denying somebody due process and fair treatment and just the truth. And so a lot of the facts that were presented in the media, I think myself, just like other people, went, yep, he did it. Why would he do that? Shame on him. And then as the facts are being revealed, it's like, oh my gosh. Like I fell into the same trap of really people are innocent until proven guilty. And Shelley said that yesterday, and it sounds so simple, but it's like the thing that we really need to hear. And don't be misled by the media. Be led by the facts. And the facts, as they bear out, it's really mind-blowing. And my question is, can people really do this with impunity? Now that all these facts are coming out and witnesses are saying I was intimidated or I was forced to say something or asked to recant or not called back to provide this testimony. I mean, they just literally are omitting things and adding things and forcing people and pressuring people. I mean, it's just really disgusting. And I think, what if that were me? You can do irreparable damage to people's reputation. And his reputation is his livelihood. Mm-hmm. It's his legacy. How do you recover that? How do you get that back? How do you get restored to whole? And it's sad because the thing he has to do right now is fight to, be cleared of this mess. But that's still a far cry from what it'll take for him to be restored to whole. So I just really appreciate the work that Shelley and others are doing to not only help to elevate our consciousness, but also to just get the truth out there.
Shelley Stanley, there you go. You've been hearing that over and over and over again. And I have to thank the Coalition for Jussie for posting links from the show. Excuse me. Listening to Chris's testimony yesterday was just stunning. He said, look, I was snowed. excuse me, pardon me. What happened yesterday in court?
Yeah. Well, first, I just wanted to say, thank you so much to Dr. Fairholden because, I think what you just said is part of, I'm sure, what will be healing for Jesse after the fact, that people understand what he went through over these 3 years and believe him and, stand by him and honor his huge struggle in this. And I definitely did not know Jesse at all. When I started writing and at all, I was just so offended by what was going on. But the thing is, I believed at that time and I knew unequivocally that he was innocent. And why is that? Because his innocence is written in CPD's own report.
Please explain.
Point blank, period. Because in CPD's own reports, it says that there was a white man at the scene, according to 2 witnesses. And in CPD's own reports, they show that they brought the guard in several times to a lineup and just showed him the lightest. I mean, they showed him all men of color in the lineup, even though he told them that the person was white. And even in CPD's reports, it says that the guard said, I'm picking the lightest skinned person here, but it's not the person that I saw. So you can see that there was intimidation in CPD's reports towards the witness. And I knew that they had covered all this up. So, I can just say unequivocally that I know it's written in CPD's reports that Jesse is innocent. But about court yesterday, in the media, it's saying that he got nailed to the wall, as Santita just said. I just want to point out that journalist, I think his name is Ernest Owens, he's not at the courthouse. So I don't know how he supposedly got the play-by-play. He is a Black gay journalist, but he was not there. And his take on what happened, I don't know how he could have possibly written that article. I was shocked to read the article, and then I saw who wrote it, and I was like, wow, but definitely Dan Webb was stumbling on the stand. He seemed quite incapable of making a point, because his only point is that Jesse was with the brothers 2 days before the attack in his car, driving around his neighborhood, which he said the day before that he often would drive around Chicago. That was something he did to relax. And, Dan Webb was saying, you were driving by your own home, several times. I mean, that's I don't know how that's unusual. And also, it was just very bizarre. So basically his whole case is based on hearsay from the brothers, that the brothers said that during that time they were planning this attack, and that the brothers said that Jesse told them to do this or that. But the brothers are also the state's only evidence against Jesse, and their word, and it's all based on hearsay of brothers who even TMZ is now questioning their credibility, because even TMZ noticed that the brothers have lied on the stand. And there's a video on that you can see that was posted on the Coalition for Jesse, FOR Jesse, Instagram page. So, it's already showing that the brothers are not really very credible. Their story keeps changing and has changed throughout. And as Santita mentioned, they changed their testimony in the last hour, the 47th hour, that they could be held before being themselves or, released. And I just wanted to say as well, another thing that came up yesterday several times was that every time, and this just happened a few times, because the judge has said nobody can speak about CPD's misconduct in this case or the backgrounds of the officers who investigated Jesse Smollett. He said that that's not relevant, even though it's clearly relevant. And so yesterday, Jesse mentioned Eddie Johnson from the stand, because Eddie Johnson had, done quite a bit in this case. And Webb jumped up immediately, and the judge started shouting, objection, objection. And the judge was shouting, strike that, strike that. But it was just such an overreaction. As soon as Eddie Johnson's name was mentioned. Also, they mentioned at one point the leaks from CPD. Nenye Uche mentioned that, Jesse's lawyer, and the same reaction. Strike that, objection, objection. They're not allowed to mention either of those things. They're not allowed to mention Kim Fox's name or Rahm Emanuel's name. They're not allowed to mention, certainly not Donald Trump, right? So basically what you have here is a situation where what is allowed to be mentioned is to pit Black men against each other and to mock and laugh at that, while CPD is basically lurking in the background, protected. And Rahm Emanuel and Eddie Johnson are somehow disappeared from this whole thing, even though, as we all know, they were front and center in the beginning, leading the charge, inciting the public, and frankly, completely lying to the public, because CPD had found within the first 3 days of this attack, they had found video footage of the men running from the scene and running by this witness, the guard, who since was threatened several times to change his story and say that the person was Black instead of white, which he refused to do. And even on stand, as I mentioned the other day, he said again, no, that he was a white man, 6 feet tall, in his 20s, and I was pressured by Sean Weber from Dan Webb's office to change my story. And he said he felt threatened and pressured. So, that's all erased from view by the judge and so by the state, really, because this is a state case against Jussie Smollett. And the judge is saying that none of that's relevant. All that's relevant is these Black men being pitted against each other when Jussie and none of the witnesses said there was a Black man at the scene, So I can just say that to start. And I don't know, Santita, if you wanted to mention anything about that.
No, this is all stunning for me. You are our eyes and ears because there is no camera in the courtroom. So I can't gauge the judge. I can't gauge his emotions. Judge Lynn he's just a name for me. And I hear that he lunged at the Attorney Walker, but I don't. There's no context for me because I don't see the facial expressions that one or two journalists from corporate media have said that where he's facially expressive. So I'm trying to get a sense from you what it's like in the courtroom, and which is why I'm just listening to you paint the picture. They said because you had a reporter who reported in the Daily Beast, one of our most esteemed journalistic outlets, that he was nailed to the wall, and yet he wasn't there. Where did he get this information from?
Right. And why did they put him as the person to write that article? A gay Black man who wasn't there, but yet had the play-by-play. So I don't know. One thing that did happen I do know, but I'm not going to say right now. I don't know who wrote it for him, but clearly. But I will say that one thing that happened in court yesterday, which was pretty astounding, and I think it was trending on Twitter quite a bit, was that, Dan Webb was reading from Jussie's text, and, he was quoting it totally. And so he said the N word basically, but he was sort of stumbling over it and it was unclear which way he said it, and Jussie would just keep wincing every time he would say it. And so Jussie stopped him at one point and he said to Dan Webb, he asked him to please stop saying the word and to either say, quote, N word or to spell it. And then he said, quote, out of respect for every African American in this room. And Dan Webb immediately apologized. He was just like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean anything and this and that. And Jussie said, quote, I accept your apology. And then later, Dan Webb, when it came up again, that Dan Webb might have to read this word, he said, quote, I'll let you read it. He said to Jussie, I'll let you read it so I don't mispronounce anything.
Okay.
So, that was, I think, that's just indicative of this kind of conversation that was going on between, obviously Jussie was on the stand, he was being cross-examined, but really there was this conversation going on between him and Dan Webb, and to me, between these two value systems, right? Between, obviously Jussie and Nunye cannot say that the police committed misconduct. They can't say anything about how Jussie was the public was incited against him, about how the police lied about him in the media and went on a press tour, and how, the police hid all this evidence, and, because that's misconduct and they're not allowed to talk about misconduct. But still, even without being able to say all that, there was still a very profound conversation going on. And at one point, Jussie also said, because he was being asked questions by Dan Webb, and Dan Webb was telling Jussie to answer yes or no, and just because Jussie would answer it, but then try to explain the context of what had happened, and Dan Webb said, no, you have to say yes or no. So Jussie just at one point said to the judge, it's hard to answer yes or no when he asks a question with little things thrown in there that are not true. I can't just say yes or no, And so I know people think maybe that's not a big deal, but I think that's just so profound, because often you're just put in this situation where the state is pressuring you. You're supposed to just do what they say, but he was continually pointing out different absurdities and different things that were violating his rights, and that he refused to do them. I'm yes or no. If Dan Webb says a statement where maybe I can say yes to one thing, but he threw in 3 lies, And so, Dan Webb would rephrase, and he would go through point by point so that Jussie could say yes to whatever part was true and no to the things that weren't true. And so, yeah, I thought it quite a profound, statement. And I also want to say, when I read the backgrounds of these officers, I know I've talked about it in the last few days, their misconduct allegation backgrounds. And I'll just say again, the 38 detectives and supervisors had 563 combined misconduct allegations against them by the people of Chicago. So people in Chicago went to CPD or these other entities where you can file these complaints and formally file the complaint, putting their own name forward that this officer did something to them 563 times. And these include criminal sexual assault, torture, homophobia, racism, shooting innocent people and trying to cover it up, falsely arresting people, use of force, so many different things. And as I was reading that over this time when I've been investigating the officers and the investigation, literally my heart broke for people in Chicago, to see people's names, to see their stories and what they've been through and how they had to sue CPD. And some of the people got $1,000 in their settlement, and their story was just unbelievably painful to read, and so just the amount of injustice that people have been going through in Chicago. And obviously we know not all officers are bad, but CPD is an incredibly corrupt system and has been known for that for a long time. And they pressure the good detectives too, as we all know. So, I just want to say, it's wrong how people have been treated in Chicago, and it's wrong what they have been doing to Jussie in this case as well. And Chicago deserves better, And I think, in this case, as I said, the witness was pressured to change his story by the special prosecutor and the police. And they, the system is basically protecting itself in this case. As you can see, the judge is saying, none of that is relevant. None of that can be talked about in the courtroom. All that can be talked about is what I allow in this very narrow window. So you have to win your case somehow in this narrow window. And I still believe he will win because their evidence is terrible against him. But, this corrupt system is basically protecting itself. It's not protecting the truth, even though that's what they're pretending. It's not protecting people from racism or lies. It's not protecting people from injustice. It's an instrument of injustice, And so I think we have to be very careful to not cast our lots with them, with this kind of system, and be very, very careful not to let them incite us to turn on each other while they stand back, protected, and watch.
We're talking with Shelley Stanley, investigative journalist who's been giving us the bird's eye view, firsthand view of what's been happening in the courtroom, and not only there. This is of the Jussie Smollett trial. She's been helping us to understand a lot of the facts, most of the facts that have been left out of the case, most of the facts that the corporate media have not covered. Was there a real turning point when the defense witness pointed out the prosecutor who was trying to make him change his story? Do you get a sense that that helped to shift the tide in the trial?
I think so, definitely. I mean, I'm in an overflow room. All the community members are in an overflow room, but we can still see the person on the stand and see the lawyer. But that's per the judge's orders. He said there's too many people in the courtroom, and that changed Thursday afternoon, according to community members, that less people could be in the courtroom. In any case, we can still see and hear, luckily, because at first we were totally locked out from any hearing anything. But yes, I can say definitely that that's something that has had a huge change on the case and on the atmosphere. At the end of Jesse's redirect yesterday during his cross-examination, Nenye pointed out things that Dan Webb said that didn't really help Dan Webb's case, and then ended by saying, what did the guard say when in his testimony? And is that the same thing that you saw, a white person, And Jesse said yes. And then he said, what did the guard say happened to him when he tried to, tell police? What did he say the prosecutors did to him? And so Jesse had to quote what the guard said. I think it's just continually comes up in people's mind like a jarring reminder that lurking behind the scenes is this system of corruption and intimidation and trying to silence people and trying to force people to do things. Like they said on the stand that Jesse was offered a deal, that he pleads guilty and he gets off lightly, but he refused because he wants to fight for the truth, And so, that just shows, again, that kind of battle. But I can also say that, Sean Weaver, who was the person who the guard pointed to when they said who threatened you, who was pressuring you, Sean Weaver has not spoken in court since that day. Silent.
Now, Sean Weaver was?
He was the lawyer with Dan Webb, who the guard pointed out as being the person who pressured and threatened him to change his story.
Just want to make sure
that the man was black instead of white.
Just, I have a couple of minutes left. What's your takeaway from yesterday? How did the prosecution do? How did the defense do? And where do you see? I mean, did anyone get a sense of the jury and how they're receiving all of this information? Doubtless, which is new to them.
Right, exactly, and very limited, as I've mentioned. But yes, I mean, there was definitely so yesterday. I thought personally that Dan Webb's case is basically based on hearsay. He had no smoking gun. It's based on the fact that he's saying that when Jesse was with these brothers 2 days before, according to Dan Webb, they were planning an elaborate attack. There's no text messages detailing this elaborate attack, even though the police said that to us in the beginning, that there were text messages such as that, but they have not shown them. So everything he's saying is inferring. He's trying to make great leaps in his case to say that this could mean this or this could mean that. And, it's all based on the brothers' word. And we know there's a lot of problems with their credibility. And then, Jesse, so basically Dan Webb was doing a cross-examination, Nenye redirected, and then Dan Webb finished out very quickly, and we ended very early yesterday. So, and as I mentioned, what Nenye said during his redirect, I thought it was very powerful to bring up Anthony Moore again, who's the security guard who pointed out the corruption. And so it ended early, and then today it starts again, the final arguments from both sides, and then the jury will go into deliberation. So yeah, it was,
Will you be at court today so that you can hear the final arguments?
I will be.
Okay, well, you got to come on tomorrow. You know you got to tell us, because
I'll be in the overflow room.
I
Yes,
don't care.
And, people who are in there. What's that?
I don't care. You're going to be there.
I know,
You're
right?
our eyes and ears,
But
Shelley
I wanted
Stanley.
to mention, like, other people from Chicago who are there. Definitely standing strong and representing are like Bella Boss,
Yes.
Frank Chapman. So there are many people from the community who are there. Watching and being very careful to protect people's interests in Chicago.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, if this can happen to him, imagine not only what could happen to you, but what is happening to people day after day after day after day. Oh my goodness.
Right.
People who don't have legal representation who are adequately prepared. Think about that. That is why you need to be concerned here. Think of all of the information that has been excluded. Think of the context that we do not have for the police officers who investigated this case. What if it happened to you? That's all I'm asking. Let's talk about Emmett Till, everybody. Wow. Carolyn Bryant Dunham in 2017 said, this didn't happen the way I said it happened in 1955. And yet, she has recanted that story. I mean, it sparked a new investigation. But what happened? Well, the DOJ said, well, we can't prove that she lied, so no one was guilty of killing. It's nobody's fault that Emmett Till died. Wow. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Wow, wow, wow. Shelley, before you go,
Today, a cashier was killed because
Dr. Deb, what did you think?
Mind blown every time.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It is a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot, but I hope we come out better because of this.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that just kicked up, I'm sure, for a lot of Black and brown folks is their own bigotry, right? And just how quickly we were to cast him aside or go with the current. You know what I mean? Because it confirms your own bias in bigotry. So this is like a wake up call. It's a wake up call, and I'm Team Jesse, like all the way now. Team Jesse.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree that it's a way to protect ourselves better because now we can see different maybe weaknesses in our thinking or our reaction and see how they manipulated the situation so that they can't do it like that again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we need to know.
Yeah, I thank you both. I'm supposed to go on
of course.
Now on this other show,
Run.
WVON with Fania and Bella.
Run.
So,
Give them my love. Run.
Okay.
I just want
Thanks
people
so
to
much,
know who
Jessica.
you are and get you out there. Please go. Go.
Okay. Thank you.
God bless you. Dr. Deb, see? We try to do some good work over here, huh? It's a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, it's a lot. It's a lot. But
dangers of the new variant.
I have Attorney Hoffler and Mr. Gray ready to go. Would you like me to put them through?
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Deb, you want to say hello to Attorney C.K. Hoffler? And let me introduce you to my friend, Kevin Gray.
Good morning. Oh, Kevin Gray from South Carolina?
Yeah.
Kevin Gray, I was in your restaurant from South Carolina with my son when he was looking at colleges for football.
Remember?
About 6 months ago. Wasn't it about 6 months ago?
Yeah.
That Kevin Gray?
That's Kevin Gray.
When I ate him at a house and home?
Stop.
Wait a minute. When you stopped in the restaurant, when you got into South Carolina, and then took a goodie bag home when you left. How about that?
And ate in the car. They never made it home.
Oh my gosh.
Y'all need to stop.
You talking about that Kevin Gray?
That Kevin Gray.
Ain't but one. Well, there's more than one, actually. There's only one here.
Well, this is the Kevin Alexander Gray, the author of Killing
there's more than
Trayvons, an anthology of American violence. Everybody, you need to get the book. Ooh. Oh boy.
Morning,
We've been talking about this, about the Jussie Smollett case. And we've had an we've had the investigative journalist on, and Dr. Deb is still here because she's been holding on as Shelley Stanley has been on the show, because she said, hey, finding out things. It completely changed her view. You still there, Dr. Deb?
I am trying to multitask, but I'm here.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry,
just
but you could
listening.
just tell CK and Kevin very quickly your thoughts, just because I have less than a minute. But it changed her
So my
mind.
thoughts on
But it changed your mind being changed about the
yeah.
case.
It's just mind blowing to me. And what I really was blown away by was how quickly and easily I was seduced into believing all the lies that were being put out. Just, I believe what the media said. You know, we've had many a joke about that. You know, and to now hear all of the facts unfold, to find out that we've got this just kind of bad squad of detectives who are probably more typical than atypical. You know, who rig cases and intimidate witnesses and do all this crazy stuff. And they just literally have, like, painted and cast this person in this absolute horrible light. And most of it is built on lies and withholding information. It's just crazy. But what is mind-blowing is how easily so many of us without even knowing the facts. So, lesson learned.
Oh, yeah. Well, just given how I grew up, I have another narrative, you know, because I've just seen so many lies told. I'm sorry, TK.
I'm not surprised. I'm just distressed that it's happened, and I hope it gets justice.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at the Chicago Police Department's inconsistencies, lies, misrepresentations, and things of that nature. I'm not surprised at prosecutorial misconduct, that the prosecutor's office tried to get witnesses to change statements. That happens quite frequently. What is saddening to me was that the way that it was portrayed in the press was really, you know, in the beginning, they did portray Jesse as a victim, and then all of a sudden it changed where he was a liar, a conniver, a schemer, and a pariah. And that is what stayed for the past, 18 months.
Oh, actually, has it been 3 years?
3 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I think the first month they gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, they gave him some grace. Yeah.
They gave him some grace. And then from that point forward, he's been demonized. And the brunt of all
1 minute.
So it's very unfortunate.
You had Mayor Emanuel, who was under his own cloud of shame. You had him come after him. You had the superintendent of police, who ended up having to resign. I mean, they came after him publicly and nationally. You know, it's a horrible thing. So, well, let's come on up and let's talk about another shame, the Emmett Till case. Wow. Ooh, help me, Holy Ghost. So I'm going to come into this live read, and I'm going to need you to pull it, okay, Matt? And send it to me.
Yep, copy that.
Thank you, sweetie. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
15 seconds.
Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. We are in the throes of the Christmas season, the Hanukkah season. Our Muslim brothers and sisters have had a holy season as well. What a beautiful, beautiful time this is. Please be mindful of those who are lonesome, who are lonely. Give them a word, give them a love. Give them some love. Give them a hug, everybody. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today on the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. But I come to you from WCPT 820 here in Chicago. We took over the airwaves for Air America, and we just continue to build and build and build. Thankfully, because of your support. I want you to call me or text me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let's talk about the Emmett Till case. You know, back in 2017, Carolyn Bryant Dunham, the woman who allegedly was offended by 14-year-old. This is a grown married woman with a child. She was allegedly offended by this 14-year-old black boy from Chicago, Emmett Till. She said he whistled at me, he touched me. All of these were grave offenses, and it had got him killed. It was really a lynching. And she recanted her story to a white historian. We're going to talk about that. And it reopened an investigation, and yet she recanted the recantation. So we got to talk about that here on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get some of these wonderful headlines out of the way so we can get to this story. Chicago will have a high of 33 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 21 degrees, partly cloudy. The winter is here, everybody. The Dow closed up 492 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 461 points. The S&P 500 closed up 95 points. In the NBA tonight, we're going to have some great basketball. The Timberwolves will be facing off against the Jazz, and the Bulls will be playing the Cavaliers. Last night in the NHL, well, we had a bit of a mixed bag. The Wild won over the Oilers 4-1, but the Chicago team fell to the Rangers. The Rangers 6, Chicago 2. Everybody, what is happening with Congress? Two key pieces of legislation passed the House late yesterday. Democrats joined by one lone GOP member. GOP Congressman Adam Kinzinger voted to pass a new debt ceiling plan to raise the country's borrowing limit and to avoid a disastrous default later this month. Germany has a new chancellor, Olaf Scholz. He has been voted in as Germany's new chancellor, replacing Angela Merkel, who has had the second longest serving term of any German chancellor, next to Helmut Kohl. And guess what? She only missed him by a day. Wow, by a day. And so this was an expected victory, and we will see what this 63-year-old leader of the Social Democratic Party will do. Former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows will no longer cooperate with the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. A letter from his attorney says that Meadows was ready to voluntarily appear for a deposition, but, quote, actions by the Select Committee have made such an appearance untenable. The richest 1%, according to a study, took 38% of the new global wealth since 1995. The bottom half of the world got just 2% of the wealth. Everybody, before we talk about Emmett Till, I have a new sponsor. I'm so excited to be working with Team Hochberg. Why am I excited? Because they can help you to save your home. Do you have poor credit? Do you have no credit? Do you need to refinance your home? Do you need to get financing for your home? Well, Team Hochberg, David Hochberg and his team can help you to do all of those things. If you think home ownership is beyond your reach, that's not true. And if you look at a lot of these homes in your communities that are in need of repair, he can help you to secure the financing to repair these homes. We all love HGTV. And to begin to generate income for yourself or to establish a homestead. Remember, home ownership in the United States is a cornerstone of wealth building. Get in the game, everybody. Call 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com, so that you can find out how to secure a VA loan on your home, how to refinance your home with no money down. There's so many ways that you can begin the road to home ownership. And believe me, your credit score cannot be too low. He will work with you. He and his team will work with you to get your credit score where it needs to be so that you can purchase your home, so that you can purchase that income generating property. If you have an issue with your home ownership, either you want to own a home or you're trying to hold on to your home, David Hochberg is your guy. Please call him at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com, 56david.com, and get that home, everybody. Well, let's talk about Emmett Till. What about Emmett Till? Emmett Till is the death of this 14-year-old changed the nation. August 28th, 1955. So much has happened on August 28th. We had the March on Washington. W.E.B. Du Bois made his transition over in Ghana. And then on that hot August night, he was dragged out of his bed visiting his relatives in the South. So many of us understand what it is to go south to visit our relatives. I used to do it as a child along with Santita, Jesse, Johnny, and Yusuf, not Jackie so much. We used to go and spend time in Virginia and in South Carolina with our grandparents. Well, he would take that sojourn down to Mississippi. And his mother tried to explain to him exactly how he needed to behave, and she did the best that she could, and he was killed anyway. Was killed anyway. So what happened, everybody? What happened with Carolyn Bryant, who decided to talk to a white historian and say that her claims were false? Hmm. That reopened the case, everybody. But it's not so simple because now she recanted the recantation. So let's talk. 1-773 763 9278 773 763 9278. She's living peacefully, quietly in North Carolina today. But wow, think of all. What about the recantation? What about her saying that her claims were false? Why couldn't the Department of Justice dig down on that? I've got two brilliant guests. Of course, this is Legal Q&A with CK. Legal Q&A with CK. And I said, today I just begged her pardon. Could we talk about this today? And of course, we brought on to her segment today, Kevin Gray, the author of the bestseller, Killing Trayvons, an anthology of American violence. Of course, he was the former president of the ACLU of South Carolina, managed Reverend Jesse Jackson's presidential campaigns in South Carolina in 1984 and 1988. Brilliant political presence. Before we get to you, Kevin Gray, let me toss to attorney C.K. Hoffler, legal Q&A with C.K. What about this case? What do you make of it? What do you make of the DOJ saying there's nothing here, there's nothing we can find? CK? Ooh.
She's on.
Good morning, Santita.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I couldn't before, but now I can.
Good morning, Santita. Good morning to your audience and to the incomparable Kevin Gray. What do I make of this case? This is really very tragic for all of us, quite frankly. We had hoped when the investigation was reopened in, I believe it was 2004 initially, or 2004, around 2004, 2006. It was our sincere hope that there would be accountability for the brutal murder of Emmett Till. Emmett Till has lived with our community, actually with this country, as one of the clouds over us. Because even in a country that has a lot of clouds and where we've had to fight for civil rights, for human rights, for equality, fight against discrimination, Emmett Till just hangs over our heads because it was an open wound where we felt there was never any accountability. And from a legal standpoint, accountability meant bringing those who murdered him to justice. We knew that they were not going to get justice in Mississippi. We knew that for sure, that the courts in Mississippi were not going to, because they did have a trial, and the persons accused of killing him were exonerated. And in Mississippi, there was another attempt, again, to indict the accusers, but they refused to do that. So we had a sense that in the state courts in Mississippi, Emmett Till was not going to get justice. So who do we turn to from a legal standpoint when the state courts fail you? You go to the federal court, because there is a Justice Department, the United States Justice Department, and a Civil Rights Division. So when this case was opened, and then it was closed, and then it was reopened in 2017 because she recanted her statement, I had a great deal of hope. I really did, because I felt that when she recanted her statement, that was evidence, even though she recanted it to a third party, to a journalist, to a writer. I felt that at least that will give us some hope, because we needed her to come forward to really reopen the case. And so for her now recently, when this Justice Department, a Justice Department that I believe, if ever there were a Justice Department that could find justice for Emmett Till, I felt it was this Justice Department. So for this Justice Department under Merrick Garland, and with the head of the Civil Rights Division that we have, who really, I think, is extraordinary, to close the case and to not be able to go forward with prosecuting the case on behalf of Emmett Till and his family, his legacy in this country, was very disappointing. But when you have a witness that recants and then recants the recant, already the first recant means that the witness is is, and it does happen, already has a credibility issue. Well, we didn't need a recant to know she had a credibility issue. We knew she had a credibility issue from the inception. But when she recanted, that put into question whether her statements could be trusted. Then when she recanted the recant, it made it that, I believe, the Justice Department felt that they could not rely on her as a witness and any evidence surrounding her because she had inconsistent statements. Clearly, she was either lying one time or lying the other time or lying all times, but they did not feel that they had sufficient evidence to go forward. That is extremely disappointing because I felt that after all of these years, we're talking about since 1955, so much has happened in this country. I felt that the Justice Department I felt that they would come out with a different outcome, but it's unfortunate that they didn't. It's my understanding that they met with Emmett Till's family. Kristen Clark, who is head of the Civil Rights Division, again, she's a formidable civil rights attorney. I believe she and others from the Justice Department met with the family to break the news so they didn't hear it in the press. But I was very disappointed from a legal standpoint and from a personal standpoint, from a moral standpoint, and from a political standpoint.
Kevin Gray, what do you make of this? Recanting the recantation. Well, no, what did you say? Ugh, yeah.
Well, Tim Tyson and I have known each other for probably, I would think, 20 years or so. I happened to be in Oklahoma, driving through Oklahoma, bringing a smoker back from Kansas when I heard Tim on public radio talking about his interview with Miss Bryant. It just so happened. And, Tim actually also wrote the book Blood Done Signed My Name, which was the story of the Oxford, North Carolina movement and the rise or the story of Ben Chavis. And so if you've ever read any of Ben's stuff, he is a great historian. He's at Duke University. What was curious to me in all of this, coming from the Justice Department, is that they said that they didn't have any recordings from Tim, and you really haven't heard Tim say anything about this particular case. And I'm wondering why they've left him and his interview with Miss Bryant out of the discussion of this case. I mean, I think that now I know Tim had an accident while vacationing, and then he ended up he's been in the hospital with kidney failure, but he's on the mend now. But I'm surprised that we haven't heard more from Tim about his interview with Miss Donham, and because basically they're saying that what he wrote in his book and what he says is not true. I mean, either Tim's a liar or Miss Donham's a liar. And I'm more willing to believe that Tim, who is a great historian, has told the truth, and there's something that the Justice Department just doesn't want to do, and that's reopen this case. And of course, you would have to ask the question, would they prosecute? But is there a civil action that can be taken against some of the family members of the or the estates of Mr. Milam and Mr. Bryan?
And eventually hers. I mean, she's in her 80s now. I'm curious about that because I cannot believe that this historian who is at Duke, who is someone of great, who has the most stellar credentials academically, CK. I can't believe he wouldn't have a recording. And I'm sure she felt very comfortable talking with him because he is a white man. I don't know what prompted her to recant her story, but she did do that. And then she recanted the recantation. How is it the DOJ couldn't work with that? What happened here?
Santita, I don't understand it, to be very honest with you. But I do believe that the DOJ, because this is over a period of time, it wasn't just a new development. And there were at least 3 Justice Department headed by 3 different people that looked into this. So this is not of first impression. Why ultimately they weren't willing to prosecute? They opened up the case. So the case was opened and shut twice. But it didn't get to the point of where they felt they had sufficient evidence to prosecute. That's a whole different level, a different standard. To prosecute, you've got to have solid evidence.
if your main witness, who is the primary witness, who is in the best position to say what happened so that there could be justice, recants and then recants the recants, it makes it very, very unreliable and very difficult if the case is centered around her. Now, if there was other evidence that could have, and I don't know what this other evidence was or what the Justice Department found or discovered, but I just, and I know that many of the people who would have firsthand knowledge are dead right now, many of the people. And so I think that's a challenge as well. But it's distressing that there was not some creative theory. You know, I always see the glass half full, some theory that we could proceed with to allow Emmett Till's family to bring closure, because it's really about his family. It's not about her family. Mm-hmm. It's not about the people who killed her. It's about his family, because the people who killed him are dead, and they got away scot-free. And there's something wrong about that.
Some got paid for telling the truth after the fact. I mean, you got to remember that the two men that killed Emmett Till received money from Look magazine after they confessed they did it.
Yep.
After the fact. But you know, as I said earlier, I'm curious as to why Tim Tyson hasn't spoken out. If the Justice Department is saying he didn't have her recorded, but in some kind of way recanting the story, what about his notes? What about that conversation? How come he isn't more upfront in this whole story? Because I just don't. This idea that they're basically going to challenge the credibility of Tim Tyson, and as I said, I've known Tim for years and years, and I mean, if you've read his work, if you read Blood Done Signed His Name, you'll be more informed about the South. Tim is a historian of the South. Blood Done Signed My Name doesn't only tell the story of Ben Chavis. It tells the story of somebody like Jesse Helms and Jesse Helms' father and their relationship with race. Tim Tyson writes about the white South that he knows about. People say things to Tim Tyson because he is a white historian in the South that they don't say to other people. I want to know what's Tim Tyson's side of the story in relationship to what the Justice Department said in regards to his research.
You know, let me bring up Judy very quickly from Glen Ellen. Judy, what's on your mind?
Hi, Santita.
Hey.
I am so angry and upset about this. A couple of years ago, I went down to the Delta just to study the region. I sat in the courtroom. I went to money. I learned so much about this. And my family's also German, from Dachau, by the way. And in Germany, they did not rest. They do not rest. They are still prosecuting Nazi crimes, regardless of how long ago it happened, regardless of the age of the criminal, because they have the information. What they don't have here is the will. Yes, they did. Your guest said something, and I'm sorry, I'm upset, as I listen to you every day, so I know darn well who that guest is, and I apologize. Yes. But, you know, they don't have the will, and they have difficulties, but they have everything they need to set the record right and to send out to the world the idea that we honestly do not tolerate racism, no matter where we find it. And if it happens to be inhabited in the body of an 87-year-old frail woman, I don't care. They should still prosecute that, because I met the Reverend Wheeler. It breaks my heart to think of him sitting in that room listening to somebody say, yeah, we're going to scratch this. I'm sure they didn't say it that way. But they have everything they need to prosecute this case, everything. They just don't have the will. And that's the difference. And that speaks volumes about how far we have to go in this country.
But CK, let me ask CK a question. CK,
I've got 1 minute.
Yeah, I was with ACLU back when there was some in the 90s when there was some talk about relitigating the case, and the issue that was raised back then was the issue of double jeopardy and whether or not you could prosecute. The other thing I want to raise, and me and Santita were talking about it yesterday in response to the caller, white supremacy means never having to say sorry.
we
And,
grabbed it from Love Story.
yeah, so that I think that plays part into what's going on here.
Just trying to lighten it up for Judy just a bit. I mean, not making fun,
And I think
but
I think you're right, but we have hate crime statutes. Let's just think about this. Let's bring it forward. Emmett Till was a lynching. Okay, so he was lynched. That was a lynching. Ahmaud Arbery suffered a modern day lynching, chased down, cornered, and shot to death brutally. There's so many parallels between those two cases just in terms of the heinous acts. A lynching and a modern day lynching. Hate crimes. The defendants, Greg McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Roddy Bryant are facing from the Justice Department a hate crime case. They are going to be prosecuted in February. What happened to Emmett Till, that's a hate crime case. If ever one existed in the history of the world, it's a hate crime case. We can talk about double jeopardy, but we can also talk about new claims, different claims. I'm sure there's evidence of so much complicity in that community because there's so many people that investigated that case. Well, a hate crime case can be brought against somebody, something, some entity. It's very disheartening for me. I don't have the benefit of knowing the investigation, knowing what the Justice Department did.
But hold on.
Feeling.
No, hold that thought because I got to get to the other side of the break. Kevin, I wish you could stay with us, but if you get down to Columbia, South Carolina, go to what is it?
Railroad Barbecue.
Come on now, it's right on the railroad. It's right on the railroad tracks, and it's a civil rights museum. Everybody, it is, and the food is great. Ask CK.
It is amazing. I tried to eat everything that they serve. I tried my best.
Absolutely. You know what? We're going to be back with Emmett Till's cousin on the other side of the break. Love you, everybody. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Wow. Kevin, I wish you could stay, babe. I'm so glad you were with us today. Kevin? Kevin? Okay. Did Kevin drop? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. CK?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Now I can hear something in the background. It sounds like swimming or something. I don't know. It might be your earbuds. Okay.
Is it gone?
Yeah, it's gone now.
I was just waving my feet.
No, it's gone. It's gone.
Okay.
It's gone, but boy, I'm about to bring up Mrs. Ollie Gordon. She is a cousin to Emmett Till, and she's president of the Mamie Till Mobley Foundation. And, yeah, wow. It's just a lot.
Well, I can't wait to hear her. And, the Jussie Smollett case. How did they end? How did the witness feel that they ended? Because
well,
I don't trust the coverage.
I'll send you the link because Chelly said, of course, there's been a complete misrepresentation of what happened in court yesterday. Because she said Dan Webb, whom you know, she said that he was stumbling through his questioning, and that Jussie was calm, and that he did well. And she said, interestingly enough, the Daily Beast article that said that Jussie was nailed. I keep calling him Jesse, but actually, everybody, he was actually named after Reverend Jesse. And Justice, his mother said she wanted to spell Jesse differently. So when I met him, that's what he told me. They said that he was nailed to the wall. That's what was written. That was the headline in the Daily Beast article. Shelley told me the article was written by someone who was not even in the courtroom.
I have Miss Wells and Miss Gordon on the line. Would you like me to put them through?
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a terrible thing because in the court of public opinion, but the good thing is the jurors are seeing what they're seeing. But when they go home, they're not sequestered, and so there's a narrative.
I hope so. But let me bring up Mrs. Ollie Gordon. Ms. Gordon, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Please forgive me for any misunderstanding. I didn't want to gobble up all your time, but I certainly would love to have you come back on the show. I'm not letting you go right now, but I have with us the chair of Rainbow Push, and she is also the immediate past president of the National Bar Association, which, as you know, is the largest and oldest black bar association in the world, more than 67,000 black lawyers. And she is with us today. Every Wednesday she does an hour, a legal Q&A with CK, and we've been breaking down the DOJ's decision not to go any further with this case, to close it. And so we are going to turn the floor over to you, but we're going to have a quick 1 minute from Mrs. Chaparral Wells. She is a brilliant, brilliant soul food artist.
Just under a minute.
And she is going to be, people are ordering food from her for the Christmas holidays. So she's going to let us know how we can get her greens and turkey and ham, pork chops, et cetera, greens, stuffing, caramel cake. She makes, what do you make for Dad? You make caramel cake and you make a banana pudding.
30 seconds.
Yes, the banana pudding is his favorite.
Well, no, and greens.
Yes.
And your chicken. Everything you make.
Oh, no. 10 seconds.
Oh, thank you, Abraham. You're such a sweetie.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about the Emmett Till case, which was closed by the U.S. Department of Justice. What do you think about that, everybody? Carolyn Bryant Dunham, just 4 years ago, spoke to a white academic historian and said, this didn't happen the way I said it happened. And it spurred a whole round of stories and speculation about this case. And yet now she recanted her recantation, and the Department of Justice said there's nothing we can do. Really? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT, as we welcome Ms. Ollie Gordon, Emmett Till's cousin, to the show. I've got to take a quick switch over to Chaparral, Celebrations by Us. We are in the season of miracles, the Mass of Christ. And one of the miracles is your foods, Chaparral. Celebrations by Us. What can we get from you?
Thanks so much, Santita, and I appreciate you allowing me to come and speak this morning. Yes, we are taking orders at 708-526-4546 until December 17th. So it's almost a little bit over a week away that we can take your orders for your ham, your turkey, your dressing, your greens, your green beans, as well as also our famous cakes and pies and cobblers. And we also have our Christmas cookies this season. So give us a call at 708-526-4546. That's 708-526-4546, or visit us on Facebook or celebrationsbyus.org. Thank you, Santita.
Thank you. 708-526-4546. Celebrations by Us, some of the best victuals that you're going to have this side of heaven. We welcome to the show on Legal Q&A with CK on the Santita Jackson Show, Attorney Hoffler. I'm so honored to have this woman with us. She's someone who I met many, many years ago. I've been honored to have met many members of the Emmett Till family. Indeed, they would come to push. Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley would come to push and sit in a particular seat. And I was always in awe of this woman who just kept on fighting with so much dignity. I mean, just so much dignity. Just when you think that this woman had to cut a deal with the Mississippi authorities, they said, we'll let you take your baby home if you do not let anyone see him. And yet she let the world see him, and she changed the world. She changed the world. But he has a few survivors, some people who are still fighting for justice for Emmett Till. If you think Emmett Till needs justice, I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. What about the admission by Carolyn Bryant Dunham that this did not happen the way she said more than 66 years ago. We welcome the president of the Mamie Till Mobley Memorial Foundation to the show, Ms. Ollie Gordon. How are you, Ms. Gordon?
I'm fine, thank you.
Well, I'm so glad that you're with us today. It means so much. I'm so honored to have you. Words almost fail me. What did you make of the Department of Justice decision not to not to go forward with this case, to close it with no further charges?
Well, I expected that particular decision or verdict, if I might say so. When we look backward from 1955, 2004, when they had reopened the case, they really had no new evidence. The case was reopened in 2017 due to the statement that Mr. Tyson made, saying that Carolyn Bryant had recanted her story from 1955 and that incident did not occur as she had stated. Once the feds went in and did a thorough investigation, they could not find anything to corroborate Mr. Tyson's statement. And therefore, with no new evidence, they could not bring anybody else to trial. So they said that they had to close the case.
The
federal government could not.
They couldn't find anything else.
No, they couldn't find any new information with going back and interviewing, looking at transcripts, looking at media for Mr. Tyson, re-interviewing Carolyn Bryant, her daughter-in-law, her son, and I think the person that transcribed Mr. Tyson's notes. They were unable to validate the statement, and of course, Carolyn Bryant said she never made that statement.
Do you think that someone with Mr. Tyson's reputation, he is a scholar from Duke University, he is someone who has international standing as an historian, do you think that he would make that kind of mistake, Ms. Gordon?
I don't think that he would make a mistake, but I also wonder if that was not a mistake or a statement. Why can't they find anything in writing? Why can't they find anything recorded on tape? The computer, I understand, that was located was broken, and they were unable to get any information from that. The people that they interviewed had no memory of hearing her make that statement. So it does leave a question in my mind. I knew at the time he had a book that was coming out, and perhaps, at least I thought at the time, well, maybe the statement was made for him to market his book and not necessarily had any validity to it. That was my thought when I initially heard it. Now that they've not been able to validate his statement, it leaves a big question mark in my mind.
I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763. WCPT. You can also text me at that number. What do you make of all of this? We're honored to have Ms. Ollie Gordon, who is the president of the Mamie Till Mobley Memorial Foundation. Of course, that is the mother of Emmett Till, who so courageously changed history, everybody. Very few people have the opportunity and have the courage to change how we live, to change history. But Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley did just that. She opened the casket and let the world see what had happened to her son. In fact, just a few months later, when Rosa Parks was on the front of that bus, and when she was told to move to the back, I had the opportunity to ask her this myself. She said, I couldn't move when I thought of Emmett Till. I saw his face, and I couldn't move. Everything, so much about the way we live today, pivots off of the lynching of Emmett Till. My parents, that pushed them into the civil rights movement. That changed Dr. King's life as he thought it was going to be. I mean, and on and on. It just changed the world. It changed the world. And now we are trying to figure out what happened. Because I have to tell you, Ms. Gordon, it just doesn't feel right. I just don't feel that Mr. Tyson would risk his reputation. That's a big risk. But you know what? Let me go to Mama D from Chicago. What are your thoughts?
Well,
No,
how
Miss
we
Gordon.
really
I'm sorry, Miss Gordon. You were going to say something.
No, I was listening to Mama D.
Okay, Mama D.
Oh, I just wanted to say hi, Ollie. How you doing?
I'm good. Good to hear your voice.
Oh, well, good to hear you too. Well, I just wanted to before I answer the question, I wanted to mention my psychic connection with Emmett. I was my Earth Day birthday is August 28th, and I personally conceived the idea, wrote the ordinance, and lobbied and financed a 3.5-year campaign to get Emmett Till Road that resurrected his legacy that had been buried for 30 years. And when Miss Rosa Parks showed up at the street dedication, she said it was what happened to Emmett that gave her the courage to do what she did. I also personally presented the proposal to the Chicago Board of Education that resulted in changing McCosh Elementary after Emmett Till. And I wrote the resolution for Emmett Till Memorial Bridge. So it was always more to the story because we must remember the Emmett Till situation happened on the heels of the Brown versus Board of Education elementary decision. And I was born in Arkansas. So when you wanted to talk to Black people, you sent them a little a message. And to lynch Emmett was a message to the world that this is what's going to happen to your grammar school child if you send them to an integrated school. And it impacted people in the North because all of the children had grandparents that still lived in the South. And it was like an unwritten rule that when summertime came, you would go down home to be with your grandparents. All of that stopped because people in the North was able to read that message. So I wanted to know it was more than just a little local thing with these men. Why didn't the feds dig deeper to find out the part that the police officers and the judges and all of those people that sat in there knowing that this is what they have done to a child who lived on to be 14, 1 month and 2 days old. And what was their impact with it? And I don't think that they have ever looked at it that way. But it definitely was connected with that Brown versus Board of Education integrate the grammar schools. What do you think, Ollie?
You mean as far as the other people in the courts that was involved, the police officers?
Right. I'm talking about it was on the heel of that Brown versus Board that there was a connection at the courtroom judges level, the prosecutors, the whole white community that came together during that time. And so they never examined that. And I want to know why, if the Justice Department got in on the case, why didn't they dig a little deeper and get those elected officials and that was in on this Till case?
That's a good question. I don't know why they never furthered their investigation into those people. But I think now, back in the day, they didn't have any hate crime laws, and they are therefore new. We have laws now, but you can't. I don't think you can go back and prosecute under oath because the law wasn't in existence in 1955.
But that was the kidnapping. Remember, it was not just the murder, but that was a kidnap charge that didn't get dealt with either.
But you know what, Mama D?
They never brought that to the table, and they never talked about the kidnap charge.
Well, you know, and to be fair, we also had an FBI that was headed by someone who was aggressively hostile to Black people in the civil rights movement. Let us look at the context of those times. And even after
Right,
the
that's what
Brown
I'm
v. Board,
talking about.
I'm in agreement with you. Even after the Brown v. Board of Education decision, we still had to have our children ushered into schools by armed marshals. Then you had the head of the FBI who hated black people and hated our progress. So there's that. So we were living not with people who were sympathetic to us. And we would hope that times would get better. And times have gotten better. We've made a lot of advancements. But when you see this, it is stunning, particularly when you see other communities that pursue people who have wronged them and systems that have wronged them, even 50, 60, 70, 100 years later. They do that. And somehow or another, we are stuck here. A C.K. Hoffler, what do you make of this? I mean, because when I think of someone who is as esteemed as Mr. Tyson from Duke University, for him to have come out with this recantation, he had to know that if it was false, it would have been a mark on his reputation. I mean, it would have cast aspersion on his whole body of work.
No, absolutely. And not only would it cast aspersion on his whole body of work, but it was going to be fully investigated. What is curious to me is that we haven't heard from him.
Mm-hmm.
That's also disconcerting.
Yeah.
Because it under normal circumstances, a scholar of his magnitude would come forward and produce the evidence that he relied upon.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how high the stakes were. And let me just say to Ms. Gordon, I am very saddened. I've been a lawyer for 35 years. I'm very saddened by this development. I understood from what you're saying there was no new evidence, but I was hoping beyond all hope that there would be something. Because, creative minds find something sometimes. But I just wanted to say that I'm very saddened by that. But I do believe I'd like to hear from the professor. I mean, it was based on his body of research. You do have handwritten notes at a minimum. You don't just pull stuff from a hat and put it on paper and commit it to. So I'd like to hear from him. I think it's very curious that we haven't heard from him. At least I haven't seen anything about any statements he's relative to this.
Well, apparently the FBI did interview him. They did go back and go over his handwritten notes, some of his recordings, but they could not collaborate. They find any statements. They didn't find any person that collaborate. Nobody had any memory or recall of her making that particular statement.
And that's odd because the statement was in 2017.
I mean, 2017, that's correct. But they looked at her memoirs, what have you. They did not find anything according to the report that the family got. And then there will still be a problem with the statute of limitation with a crime that was committed in 1955. They didn't have any federal laws at that time against hate crimes. And then there was another thing. They didn't have any jurisdiction in that area to bring any charges against anyone that might be living at this time. But they did not find any substantial evidence after interviewing Carolyn Bryant, interviewing the daughter-in-law and the son, also the transcriber, the editor that worked with Tyson. No one had any memory of hearing the statement being made. It was not documented anywhere. It was not recorded anywhere. And without the FBI had to have proof in order to bring charges, and that they was not able to find. That's why they ended up saying that there was no new evidence and the case would be closed.
That just seems very odd.
Yeah, it does seem very odd. And perhaps, maybe she did make a statement within her story or her memoirs, but did not directly make the statement, a recanting statement to the statement that she died. Maybe overall she made a statement, but it could not be directly connected to that particular issue of recanting her story. That Emmett did not. The actions she had earlier stated.
It's all very interesting, because Bayard Rustin famously covered this case for The Guardian. at 66 years ago. I mean, you have a lot of people, and he bumped into a young man who worked in, I think it's the Milam's store. His name was Too Tight, and Too Tight
Right.
was the
Too tight.
person.
Well, didn't they say he was
That's
one
right.
of the people, one of the men on the truck?
That's right, and that he actually fingered Emmett Till and said, no, he's the one who sassed, Miss Carolyn, right?
Right. Right. Now, I don't know, but isn't Too Tight deceased?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
So they wouldn't have been able to interview him
But
in
I guess
2017.
what, Miss Gordon. I guess I'm just trying to figure out how they could not have pieced all of this together. But then too, I also know that you almost have like an omerta, like a blood oath. Uh, Power protects itself,
That's
and
right.
and these people don't want this true story to get out. Miss Gordon, why don't you respond to that?
No, they don't want the true story to get out. They don't want our history to be known. They have now, I think in the state of Mississippi, they are censoring certain terms that you can use in the educational system. So they, and without some of those terms, it's going to be very difficult for us to continue and teach our history and talk about the Till case in the classrooms. So they want to bury that history. They do not want that. That's a stain on America, a stain on Mississippi that they really want to go away. But even they can censor all they like. It's not going to go away. We are going to continue to keep the legacy of Emmett and his mother alive and continue to fight until we can get some type of I'm gonna say peace in this point, because I don't think that we're going to get justice. And my question is, at this point, what does justice look like?
What would justice look like for you?
Justice is very difficult for me to understand what it's going to look like in the future. When I think in terms of Emmett's mother, and she wanted world peace. She wanted peace among the races. Now, if in some way we can get peace where we respect and honor each of the different races in the world, that would be, I think, in the eyes of his mother, some type of justice. Incarceration at this point is not going to bring any justice at the age that Carolyn Bryant is at, and even her health. So, she'll have to just go before the throne of God, and at that time, justice will be bestowed upon her.
Well, I keep hearing, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways and seek my face, then they will hear from heaven. I pray for the soul of Miss Bryant and Mr. Milam, and just I pray for them all, because what they did was absolutely heinous. And I don't know if you can truly, if you can't be human and humane and have peace having lynched this boy this way. And think of all of the people, think of all of the bodies they bumped into before they got to Emmett Till. That's the thing. They were like, no, this is the wrong one. No, wrong body. They bumped into a whole lot of bodies before they got to Emmett Till, and they could only identify him by that signet ring from his daddy. Unbelievable.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. The last minute belongs to you, Ms. Gordon. How can we be supportive of you and your efforts?
Well, you can continue to keep Emmett's life and his legacy in the public, in the eyes of the public. You continue to remember his mother's name and all the people that have fought, including my daughter, Erica Gordon Taylor, who fought until her death, to continue the fight after Emmett's mother expired. So just let's keep fighting, keep pushing forward, and keep seeking justice and trying to get this Emmett Till anti-lynching bill passed.
Well, yeah, because CK, that's something that Bobby Rush has been pushing. I mean, we still have to have an anti-lynching bill. We don't have that yet, CK. The last 60 seconds belong to you, CK.
Well, I think that we have to, draw our strength from the grace of Miss Gordon and Emmett Till's family. We are all outraged. We are saddened that the outcome wasn't different. I know because I'm a lawyer in the system. I work in the system. I fight against the system every single day. I know that there's injustice, but we have to keep on fighting, and we need to fight for the passage of this bill. There are hate crime bills, hate crime legislation, both state and federal, but anti-lynching, there are not. And I think it would be so important for us to push for that, to call our senators, to impress upon our members of Congress, and to register to vote. It is so important. If Emmett Till had just lived, I know he would have registered to vote. So for no other reason, understand in his honor, register to vote so you can elect the prosecutors who prosecute these cases. So you can elect the clerk of court who determine who's going to sit on cases. So you can elect the judges who sit in judgment on these types of cases and do it in the name of Emmett Till.
Amen to that. Ms. Ollie Gordon, president of the Mamie Till Mobley Memorial Foundation. Everybody, please give them your support. Sending you much love. And of course, dedicating the show to your daughter today, and to Mrs. Till, and to Emmett. We just thank God for the Emmett Till family. You all have kept fighting after all these years. You just have not stopped. And we thank God for you, Ms. Gordon. Sending you much love today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless you, everybody. See you tomorrow, God willing, on the Santita Jackson Show. Make it a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
CK? Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon, thank you so much. I'm on Facebook Live, and I'm just saying goodbye to everybody now, but I want to thank you for honoring us with your presence today. It meant so much to have you here. Meant so much.
I should have mentioned my event, but maybe I'll have an opportunity to do that later.
You know what I'll do? I'll bring you back. You can mention it now, and I'll bring you back on tomorrow so you can mention your event. Okay?
Okay, that'll work.
Because you can just make an announcement. But what is your event? Because I still have people who are tuning who have tuned in. When is your event? What is your event and when is it?
Event will be January the 4th at the Logan Center in Chicago, and it is a celebration or commemoration of Mrs. Mamie Till Mobley's 100th birthday. And also, we will be doing a streaming of the Women of the Movement series, 6-part series that's going to be aired on January 6th, Channel 7, ABC. And also there will be a companion documentary called Let the World See that's been done by Fatima Curry that will be streamed at that time.
Okay. Well, certainly I want you to come back on and talk about it the closer we get to it. But tomorrow, you can certainly make that announcement.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course. I thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. It meant the world to me and to everybody here. We're so honored that you joined us.
Thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. How can we get information about this January 4th event? Where do we go?
There will be something on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Okay.
And also, I know there's Bright Tickets event. There's something there too.
An Eventbrite. Okay.
Yes, Eventbrite. I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. All this stuff is new.
Very new to me. My daughter did all of this.
we do the best that we can, but you've caught up very quickly.
Yes, right at the Logan Center at 915 East 60th Street in Chicago is where the event is going to take place.
Okay. Well, the closer we get to it.
The time will be from 6 until 9.
Okay. And the closer we get to it, you come back or have your surrogates come back. I will support you in every way that I can.
Okay, thank you so much. I can use all the support I can get.
You got it. You absolutely have it. You've got it. Sending you much love.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you, everybody. All right, L. Stanley Davis. You see, we got an event January 4th. So go on. Let's make this happen. Effie Rolfe. We need to, yep, Effie. So we need to get her on one of your platforms, okay? The legendary Effie Rolfe.
Yeah, we are looking for sponsors as well.
Whew, God bless. Well, you know what? We'll just put it out there. We'll put it out there. And so, okay. Effie, I need you to join in. L. Stanley Davis, need you to join in. D. Ray, Everybody, Carol, not me, Soskin, the birthday girl. Everybody, please join in. They need sponsors and they need support. Absolutely. Sending you much love, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Go out, make it a great day. I love you. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show.